Welcome. It is a joy to be with you. If you are enjoying this content, please like, share, and subscribe. It helps light travel. Good morning. God bless. 1,000 blessings, 1,000 welcomes. We are meditating today on the subject, Be Exceeding Glad. And we've already been doing this, for which I give thanks and for which I rejoice. And that particular title comes from the Sermon on the Mount. So a couple of weeks ago, we began with a collective shared reading of the Sermon on the Mount. And one of the lines from that incredible teaching from a master teacher is this: rejoice and be exceeding glad, for great is your reward in heaven. And so we're inviting ourselves to tune into that energy of rejoicing. And again, we've been doing this all along, but tune into that energy of rejoicing and tuning into that energy of being exceedingly glad. And then, of course, the human aspect of ourselves is quite likely to add a little postscript to this line, for great is your reward in heaven. And the human mind is likely to say, well, when is that? Where is that? How long, oh Lord, how long? And the yogis tell us, and so this is one of the great gifts that the yogic teachings tell us, the yogis tell us that we don't have to die to be in this consciousness of rejoicing. We don't have to leave the physical body to be in this consciousness of being exceedingly glad. The yogis tell us that heaven is not so much a place as it is a frequency. It is an energy. It is an awareness. It is a way of seeing and connecting with reality. And then the beauty of this is when we connect with that truth, with that reality, it's able silently to share through us right in the midst of our daily lives. And so you just heard like a catalog of examples when Padma spoke of the ways that this can be lived. Just the living reality of human forgiveness and mercy and grace and gladness and generosity and kindness and caring and forgiveness, and the willingness to look past what seems to human eyes like limitation. And so there's a story in the yogic teachings of an incredible yogi, fully illumined, fully in contact with reality, fully in contact with the divine, and his body was broken in 8 places. And so you looked at him from the outside and you thought, physical disability would be our word for it today. Physical brokenness is another way of looking at it. And so some people very clearly looked at him and they laughed and they judged him from the outside, and they completely missed the reality that behind that exterior where his body was broken in 8 places was perfection of consciousness. And so I want to remind us all that part of this rejoicing and being exceeding glad, and the Bhagavad Gita is completely clear about this. It says each of us, as we meditate, as we live, as we practice karma yogi, being karma yogis, as we practice living the truth in human form, wherever we are, right in our time, right in our place, right amidst our daily tasks, we're each invited to free ourselves from delusion, and we're each invited to be liberated from imperfection. Come back to that yogi whose body was broken in 8 places. He was free from delusion. He was liberated from imperfection. His body was still broken in 8 places. He was able to see that his body, even in its brokenness in 8 places, was part of the freedom, was part of the liberation, was part of the perfection. And so each of us is invited to look past what things appeared to look like from our human eyes and from our human indices of assessing and valuing and measuring and judging and often condemning or dismissing ourselves and others. And so I'm smiling because I also came across some scholars. So, human scholars, oh my God, I am one and I love you. Oh, God bless you. Kisses. These human scholars were asking, what did Jesus look like? And they said, he wasn't tall, or the scriptures would have said, because scriptures say if someone is taller than the average, and he wasn't good looking, because scriptures say if someone was good looking, They comment on that. So Jesus was not tall. Jesus was not good looking. He was unrecognizable. There was nothing remarkable looking at the outer. The soldiers and the guards had to have him pointed out. They couldn't see that that was something remarkable right there. You are something remarkable right here. So just as Jesus was not about the outer appearance, he was not about the outer physicality, the yogi whose body was broken in 8 places was not about the body. It was not about that outer physicality. It was not about the suffering that it is possible that every human body I have ever heard of has experienced in time and space. It's not about that. Still, you are perfect. Still, you are magnificent. Still, you are liberated. Still, you are this energy of rejoicing. Still, you are this energy of gladness. And so 2 stories. So one of these is from a little over 100 years ago. It's this woman, and she had been sick, and she had had surgery. And then about 2 days after she had surgery, she was in the hospital. And at that point, they would wheel patients like in a hospital bed out onto a hospital porch to get some fresh air. So she was out there. This was her first time out of doors. She's convalescing after surgery. So her body has been in pain. And she had experienced what we today would call momentary but severe depression as she was coming out of that surgery. So that had been what she had moved through, the physical pain and what we today would call momentary severe depression. She's lying there. It's March. There's like dreariness. Ugly little patches of snow are melting. And she's really careful to say, it was not a glorious day on an outer level. It was dreary, okay? Dreary, dull, gray, kind of like that grouchy March weather. And she said for 20 minutes, may have been less, may have been more, all of a sudden her eyes were open to see reality. And she was open to see that a single strand of hair on a nurse who was walking past her was like an amazing, miraculous, beautiful expression of divine love. She was able to see that her convalescing body was an amazing, beautiful, miraculous expression of divine love. She was able to see that the whiteness of the uniforms on the interns were like divine love expressed in that form. The whiteness on those uniforms was divine love taking that particular form. She heard a bird sing, and she said not only could she hear that the bird was divine love singing, but she was able to sense the underlying rhythm of the universe. And she was able to sense that if a bird flies, it is because the music of the universe has either inspired that bird to fly, or as the bird's wings move, it sings part of the song of the universe. And that for every human step that we take, it's the same. There is not a single human step that is taken, walking forward, walking backward, that is not made possible and connected by the song of the universe. And each of us is important and dynamic and vital and essential to that song of that universe. And so that's just a sort of everyday, ordinary moment that she experienced where her vision lifted and she was able to see into reality. She said it might have lasted 20 minutes, might have been shorter, might have been longer. And the awareness of it never left her. So I could keep talking about this for ages. There's a kind of funny follow-up because she published this account, and then the follow-up, one of the follow-ups was really, really charming. It was this 44-year-old woman who worked as a homemaker, and she said, I'm 44 years old, and I'm just realizing that's my natural state all the time. And I didn't know that this wasn't the way other humans saw the world. She was like, that helps me understand a little bit of what I see when I look around at human reactions and at the way that humans interact with one another. And this woman who was 44, for whom this was her natural way of being, she says, I'm doing the dishes and I run dishwater in my sink and I stand there in amazement because that dishwater in my sink is as mighty as the Niagara Falls. And I'll just sit there and look at my dishwater for several minutes, wondering and admiring the way that this dishwater is like the Niagara Falls. And so for each of us, we're invited to practice that awareness, to open ourselves to that awareness. And the really good news is that when we meditate, that's what we do. You can feel it. You can feel it instantly as soon as we begin meditating today. As soon as we begin connecting with our feet on the earth, we begin connecting with this reality, this truth, which is always present and always available. So, love is a direct route. So anytime you have a question like, how can I access that energy? And when I say love, it's not romantic love, it's not passionate love, it's not sexual love, it is pure love, all-embracing spiritual pure love that is all of the energies of the lower chakra. So lust, anger, greed, all of that purified and uplifted, that energy, that gives us direct contact with the reality of benediction, generosity, healing, grace, divine wisdom, kindness, forgiveness, gladness, whatever you adore. It gives us direct connectedness with that right in the midst of our daily life. And this is true. It's that love that I just mentioned is also equally inseparable from divine wisdom. So the divine perspective, the divine insight, the divine awareness that understands humans are beautiful and wondrous and awesome, and sometimes they really mess things up, right? And so I have a story that is about that, and then becomes about moving towards love. And so before I offer the story, this is the essential teaching that Jesus offers when he says to the crowd that wants to throw stones at the woman who has been caught in adultery, please be my guest if you have never sinned. Please be my guest if you have never missed the mark of perfection. So Jesus is saying, the teaching of truth is saying to all of us, every human has occasionally at least in passing for a moment, missed the mark of perfection. So just as we have been in need of mercy, don't be surprised if other humans are sometimes, occasionally, or often in need of mercy. Don't be surprised if we ourselves are occasionally or often in need of mercy. Do your best. The Sermon on the Mount is telling us how to live in harmony with the laws of energy. So another thing that the Sermon on the Mount makes absolutely clear, we directly meet and feel for ourselves the consequences of all that we create. So choose wisely, choose joyfully, create in harmony with these laws of divine love and wisdom. So this true story is taking place about 15 years ago in this country, in Pennsylvania. And it starts off 15 years ago, and there's a 53-year-old man. He works as a chef. He gets out of work at night. He's walking home, and he's shot and killed. His family makes the decision to donate his heart before he's killed. His heart is transplanted to a man in New Jersey who is a couple days away from dying if he had not received that heart. Over the course of the next 10 years, the donor family and the recipient family stay in contact with one another. And when it comes time for the daughter of the man who died while he was walking home from work one night, when it comes time for her to be married, she reaches out and she asks the recipient of her dad's heart, "Would you walk me down the aisle?" And he says, "I might be overcome with emotion." And she says, "I might too." And they say, "Yes, let's do that." And so the donor, the person who received her dad's heart, walks her down the aisle and he says to her, "Place your hand on my wrist. That's where my pulse is strongest. That's your dad's heart that you're feeling right there." And so he walks her down the aisle, and there's a beautiful picture of the bride with her hand on the heart of the person who received her father's heart. And her husband is looking on and smiling. And so that right there is kind of the whole human gamut, right there. So the person who shot the father is in jail. He did, in that particular case, meet human law. He will also meet the laws of energy. So his opportunity while he's in jail, and I want to make this clear, I have spoken to someone who, at about the same age, took the life of another, went to jail. That particular person to whom I spoke burned away the energetic imbalance that had been created when he took that other life. And he even spoke of it in those words. He said, "The only thing that remains is what is pure. Everything else gets burned away." And the same is true for all of us. Now or later, we get to burn away any imbalance, anywhere where we have caused harm or pain or separation, we get to burn that away. And if we are dedicated in our meditative path, we will do that. As we meditate, it will happen naturally. And then what happens is there's nothing left. There's just pure love. And that's able to share through us. And we also, and I'm saying this in case anyone has experienced human pain and not seen human law and justice work in a complete manner, you can rest assured the laws of energy will meet that person, and they will directly get to feel, sooner or later, the direct effects of whatever they create. And the same is true for all of us, and there is not a one of us who does not need mercy. And so let it be always that justice and mercy walk hand in hand, that love and truth and forgiveness are with us always, that we are able to stand on that bedrock of truth. This is what Jesus means when he says, build your house on a rock. Build your house on the rock of reality, on the rock of truth, on the rock of our interconnectedness with all. Build our house on the reality that we cannot help another without helping ourselves. There is no other. There's only the one. We cannot cause pain or separation without causing pain and separation for ourselves. And when we have this remembrance, when we have this grace, when we have this open-heartedness, then we're in harmony. We're in harmony with our ancestors, going back, the yogis say 7 generations, it actually is farther back than that, thousands of generations back. We're in harmony with all of our ancestors. And so we can see them. We can see their hearts filled to overflowing with love for all of us, with support for all of us, with respect for whatever it is that we walk through, knowing that humans walk through all of that I just named. The most incredible, heart-wrenching injustices that humans can create, and the incredible perfection of divine law, and the incredible justice, but also the incredible mercy of the laws of energy, which are always the laws of love, which give everyone a chance to come back into connectedness, to come back into fullness of community, to come back into the fullness of life, to come back into the fullness of the awareness that every one of us is invited. All the people on the planet, everyone who has ever lived is invited to rejoice and to be exceeding glad. Thank God, and God bless us all.